Hi everyone. I'm starting over on a few areas of my Olaf pattern. I am hoping I can make this more clear to to clear up some confusion in certain areas, and this will allow me to also go over a couple other parts that are in the pattern that people might have questions on, beginners might have questions on. We start our pattern with the feet, which is what I'm going to go through with you right now. And there has been some confusion in the pattern when it gets to the upper part, the head part where the lip is. And a lot of that is because in the pattern, after you create the bottom half of the body, I have you attach the feet, or the pattern instructs you to do so. And because of that, it makes a difference where you're starting on the lip end all the way up at the head. So it might be better to attach your feet on your Olaf after you've finished your upper section, and that way you know, or to do your Olaf in sections. If you're doing it in sections already, then you won't have any problem with the head part. But if you're making a one-piece Olaf, as I show the two different ways in the pattern, both with a full body and with a sectioned, then you might want to wait to attach your feet. So I'm going to start on the feet of Olaf. You are going to make a magic circle or a magic loop, and most people do, I'm sure, know how to make this already, but I'm going to go over this one time. I also have a tutorial that I made strictly for a magic loop. So if you want to spend more time learning that, or if this isn't good enough on this, part, I'm not going to spend too much time here. Just go into my videos and find magic loop, and I go over this in more detail. So to start our feet, you don't need to leave that big of a tail in the beginning, but a magic loop, you're going to wind around 2 fingers. You're going to wind your yarn once and then twice, crossing over the second time there. You're going to put your hook up through the middle of that crisscross, and then you're going to pull this string under, twist it up, and then you're going to come back here and grab this yarn right here, and you're going to pull it through that circle that you made. And that makes your magic loop right there. Okay, like I said, if you need more time on that, because I didn't learn that in a second, you can go in and look at the tutorial or just rewind this section. But basically what we are doing is we're going to start our feet with 6 single crochets into our magic circle. So you're going into the circle, going in, we're going to grab our yarn, pull through, and then make our single crochet. Please forgive the lighting in this video. I say that every time, but I do not have high quality video capabilities here. So there's our first single crochet. We're going to do 6 of those. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I've got 6 single crochets into my magic circle with I'm not saying this right, amigurumi, which are just little animals and little people, animal projects, whatever, for crochet. These you're going to be tighter with your stitches, just because you're going to be stuffing your project and you want everything to be nice and tight and perfect. So you can pull your tail so that you're starting to form a circle here. You don't have to pull it extremely tight. You can do that later. Pull it enough to where you're not going to have a big problem going in here. but we are not going to be joining after each row. This is going to be a continual around. At this part, we've got a total of 6 single crochets, and then we are going to increase with 2 single crochets into each stitch around. And this is not good with the white yarn here, I'm sorry. We're going to go into our first, oops, and it is going to be a little tough. I am also, as I forgot to mention, using my G hook, sorry. We're going to go into our first stitch here. It'll get easier once we get past this first part of the circle, but we're going to do 2 single crochets into that first stitch, and then every stitch around. So we'll have a total of 12 single crochets, 12 stitches when we have completed this round. So we've got 3, 4, 6. We're at our halfway point there. 8. 10. And 12. Okay, remember we are not joining. But at this point I can go ahead and pull my tail more in the back to close off my center circle there. Now at this point I will use a stitch marker to keep things in order here. And the way I do this, or you can actually use a stitch marker, but in this little tiny space I find it much easier to just use a piece of thread. And what I do is I take my thread and I just place it in front of my first stitch that I'm going to be making. So I can just stitch right over that. And that way I'm not, dealing with a stitch marker, an actual like plastic stitch marker getting in my way. Alright, so after we've done our increase, we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of our single crochets back loop only. It's going to be kind of tough to show you because of my lighting, but you've got your front loop of your stitch, front loop of your stitch, and then you have your back loop of your stitch right there. Okay, and we are going to go around and do a single crochet into each of the back loop only. Okay, so we've got 1, and you see this is all going to come together. Don't worry about it kind of gapping up there and everything, but you're wanting to go into just the back loop right there. So we got 2. Oops, sorry. This is a little tough with a camera in front of me too. We got 2, and I've got a little knot in my string coming up there, so that's going to be fun. 3, back loop only. 4, 5, 6, halfway there. Make sure you're grabbing all of your back loop though. 10. and 12. Okay, now, so if your counts are right, you'll end up with your stitch marker right ahead of where you're at here. Okay? See if there's a better way for me to do my lighting. But anyhow, we have gotten this, and the reason that we are going back loop only, as you see, it's created a little lid effect. It's given us a bend in our project. It's allowing this to go upwards and kind of squared off a little more. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move our stitch marker up to the next row, to our proper row. And now we're going to do one single crochet in each of the stitches around. We'll go into both loops this time. So we're going to even that up and get us back on track from our last. So you're going to go three, 6, 9, 12. Okay. You're going to do one single crochet in each single crochet around for 2 more rows, rows 5 and 6. Move your stitch marker up. There's 3, 4, 5, boop, 6, 9, 11, and 12. There's row 5 finished. Move your stitch marker up for one more round here of single crochets in each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, 7, 11, and 12. Okay. Now you have what looks like, well, it's forming almost like a marshmallow shape. So if you'd like to know how to make marshmallows with crochet, you could pretty much just use this foot pattern and make some perfect little s'mores marshmallows. All right, for our final foot row, we're doing a decrease, which is another little tip I'm going to show you. You can do a regular decrease, which would be simply going into a stitch, pulling your yarn through, leaving that yarn on your hook, and then going into your next stitch, pulling your yarn through and leaving, you got all 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3 yarns on your hook. And you have done a decrease. Or you can do an invisible decrease. An invisible decrease will be a wonderful thing for you to use for your amigurumi projects. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but it actually will make it look like you have not done an increase at all there. You haven't skipped a beat with your stitches. So it's going to look like a regular stitch if you do an invisible decrease. It's a little bit tricky just because it's kind of tight, but it's actually very simple. With an invisible decrease, you're going to go into the front loop only of your stitch. And then into the very next stitch, you're going to go into the front loop only again. So you've got 2, 3 strands of yarn on your hook. You're going to pull through both of those 2 strands that you just went through the front loop only on. You'll have 2 strands on your hook, yarn over, and pull through those 2. And you have made an invisible decrease. Basically, when you get finished with your project, it's going to be very, very hard to see any difference in your stitches there. Okay, so I prefer to do the invisible decrease, and that is what I am doing. I also have a tutorial up on YouTube for an invisible decrease by itself, so if you want a little more time to work on that, you can do the same. But we are going around and decreasing completely in this row. So we'll go over 2 stitches, we'll do decreases. That will take our row of 12 stitch count down to 6 stitch count. We're going to go around, you'll do that 6 times. So 1, and into the front loop only on that, yarn over, pull through the 2 strands that you went through, yarn over, and pull through. Okay, we've made 2 invisible decreases. We'll do this again for our 3rd. And there's our 4th invisible decrease. Oop. And get through all the strands. And there's our 5th, and we'll have 1 more. Should have 2 stitches left on there, which we do. We'll go in our first front loop, our second front loop, pull through, and we have completed, well, almost completed 1 foot. At this point, let's see if I can give you any better of an idea. What I'll do normally at this point, I will, just to make it very secure, I will go ahead at the end of my stitch, I will go ahead and just yarn over and pull through that right there. And then, if I haven't given you too much of a headache here, sorry, we're going to go ahead and clip off here. Give yourself a tail. Pull through that string, give yourself a tail to sew this onto the body. Okay, so stitch marker out. I am going to take a larger hook here, just so I can kind of open up that center hole there, because my fingers are too big to get in there. Maybe not my pinky. Okay, just to kind of open it up a little bit. But at this point, you've got your little marshmallow foot, and you're just going to go in, and you're, one thing, you know, you can hide your tail before you get up so far in this project. You can hide this inner tail thing here. You can hide it by working it in with your stitches, which I'll show you on another part of the tutorial, how you can hide that in as you go along, which cuts down on a little time in the end, because nobody, well, maybe some of you, but I know I do not like hiding my tails. That is the part of crochet that I have really no interest in. So we'll get that all in there and hidden just so that you can see yourself. You're going to be stuffing, at this point, you're going to be stuffing everything into this hole. If it's easier for you, before you get to your invisible decrease row, the row just before that, go ahead and stuff it as much as you can, and then, you know, without hindering your final decrease row, and then go ahead and do your decrease and stuff the rest of the way. That way you'll be part way there. Again, I am so sorry about the lighting on this, but I hope that that helped you with the first part. You can see this is the bottom part of Olaf's foot, and this is the part where we're going to attach it to the rest of his body. You're going to make 2 feet, and then you will come back in and join me for our bottom body segment to Olaf.